Our passage today comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, beginning with verse 1 through 13. If I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. But as for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. For we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part. But when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. And when I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child, and I reasoned like a child. And when I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part. Then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, and love abide, these three. And the greatest of these is love. The word of God to the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
This past week, one of the things that I happened to do was I was watching some different movie clips. And in these clips that I was seeing, there was this constant thread of talking about being more vulnerable and risks being involved. Proper protection was necessary. That when disaster may strike, there was this sense that said that there are all kinds of factors involved. It's not just one thing. Be very careful and attentive to surroundings. These are some statements that were made in this clip, and the more I thought about it, the more that sounded a lot like love. A couple of quotes here. If Christ has our love, He has our all. If we actually love Him, He will have our time, He will have our service, and He will have the use of all of our resources and gifts and graces. And indeed, then He shall have our possessions, freedom, and our very lives. The second one says, the nearer we draw to God in our love for Him, the more we are united together by our love for our neighbor. And the greater our union with our neighbor, the greater is our union with God. I like those. In our passage today, Paul is talking to the people at Corinth. And in this whole section, it wasn't just, all of a sudden he started spouting off about love. He was setting this up because Paul sees love as a spiritual gift and a fruit of the Spirit. This is part of the body of Christ and who we are as people. And so he basically kind of walks down through the field of the Corinthian people's values. See, they think very highly of Paul. They know that Paul is a very gifted person. And so when Paul says something like, if I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels, but I do not have love, I am nothing. That means something to the people of Corinth. How well somebody might perform something, Paul is basically saying, doesn't matter if there's no love. And so he then goes and he continues this oracle, and he talks about the contrast then of love in the second half, of what love is. Patient, kind. And so there's this common thread throughout the whole thing of the need for ongoing forgiveness. Think about it in relationships. Because, I'll be honest with you, when I read this, I find things in there that I'm not. You know? This isn't one of those easy passages that you can just, yeah, y'all get that? Let's go home. No. There's a whole list of things. Patient, kind. And there was a section in one of the translations that doesn't keep record of wrongs. Oh, I've done that. I'm a good record keeper of what somebody's done wrong to me sometimes. So I look at that one, oh man. Yeah. This is tough stuff, but this is the foundation. This is the matrix from which everything else is hinged. This is one of those things that if we can't get this right, we're missing it. We lose. No love? No. That's the point Paul's making here in this passage. No matter what, there's got to be love. Now, some of the things that, in thinking about this, are easier to convey. And so what I want to first say, what love is not. Let's look at that. I was talking to a woman. I didn't know her. She was selling some things on the side of the road, and I found out she had lost a family member to death, and so I was really going over to speak to her about that and offer my condolences. And the interesting thing was, as I stood there, all of a sudden she just started talking about her Social Security. Yeah, I mean, just all of a sudden, you know, my Social Security isn't going to get any higher. And I said, well, I may not have any.
Right.
No, big deal, you know, next. And then she just started spewing. This president doesn't have a brain. He is so stupid. He's ruining our country. I'm just sitting there. Now, you may not agree with me. I'm just sitting there. I ain't moving. And after that, I just kind of, because it didn't really matter what it's about. That was my true example. I won't lie to you, make up something. But I got in my car and I started thinking about this America's Funniest Home Video that my son and I watched one time, Andrew and I. And it was about this little girl. She had one of those little crybaby dolls. And the only way you could get the baby to be quiet was to whisper something in its ear and put him over your shoulder. And so the little baby would cry, the little girl picked her up, and the baby kept crying. And it wasn't working. And so the little girl, she's about 8 years old. Oh, this is funny. This is just so funny. The little girl, she looks at the baby, she holds the baby up to her, and she screams in the baby's ear, "Shut up!" Yeah. And then the baby just keeps crying. She, "Shut up!" Yeah. Then she's hollering for her mother. You get it? "Mama, the baby will die." "Shut up!" "Shut up." Yeah, shut up. She drug it out with it. Shut up. Y'all, I was thinking that sometimes listening to critical spirits and judgmental people, and I just want to go, shut up! You know? Come on. And then it's usually anybody who starts, but you know, I'm a Christian and I go to church, but it's almost as if, see, the reality is we've all got like a container. Here, I'll use this. I'll use mine. Oh, Elvis coffee cup. It's like we've got a container. That's who we are. This cup. And we just got to get this junk out, you know? And once we get all that junk out, then the whole contents and everything changes. That's called dying to self. In order to truly be born again, it's a process. But it can begin, you know, right now, right where we are. And that we're not called to agree with everything, but we're called to love. And with love means some respect. You know? It's a foundational component. It's what sets us apart from the rest of the world. We can either set ourselves apart or we can't. Now, toss up my next quote. This to me is the finest quote I've ever seen on love. To love it all is to be vulnerable. Love anything, your heart will certainly be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give your heart to no one, not even to an animal. Wrap it carefully around with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. And in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, and irredeemable. Yes, that is another option. Have you ever known somebody that had put up so many barriers? Impenetratable. I guess that's what you're trying to say. That's so sad. It's very sad. Love is the greatest emotion of all. And it's the most painful as well. Where there is love, there is the potential for suffering. This sign right here hangs in my room. I found this one little part that said love at Big Lots or something, and I thought, I'm going to do something with that. But I didn't know what I was going to do with it. One day, God revealed to me what I needed to do with it. It had to do with this passage, and I sat in my room, and I took one of those little carving tools, and I carved in all the different things on this passage. Patient, kind. Something happens to you when you have to put something like that in wood. It's like the Ten Commandments in stone carved. I guess this was God's little way of helping me realize what love really means. And that love does